Hello guys, how are you doing today? Hope you're having a fantastic day. One of my students asked me a question regarding retain logic, progress override, and actual date. So let's dive into page 6. I will show you the scenario. So as you can see my screen, we have four activities: A, B, C, and D. So we need to finish A before we start B, before we start C and D. So they're all finished to start relationship. Okay, so finish one before the other one. So now let's say A is completed. So if I mark A as completed, so just mark it as finished. What do you think will happen now if we schedule the program? Okay, so we've now moved our data date, and you can see the actual is in the future of our data date. So ideally your actual should be behind your data date on the left hand side of your data date. But you can see on my screen now, A is completed, B, C, and D are still in the future. If I schedule my program now, click on schedule, you see that B is now in parallel with A. So what B is saying is that since A, my predecessor, is complete and my data date is where it is now, I can start immediately. Okay, so that's because we're using retain logic, so it's retaining the logic. So if I click on this one now, and we have retain logic in there, okay, so it's showing that activity B can start since my data date is there. But what if we move our data date? So if we move our data date to the 30th of May, for example, 30th of May, schedule, and you schedule, you see that B will still be from the data date. All right, so B will still be from the data date. But if I go back now, let's say we go back to what the data date was. I think it was 26th. So if we go back now to where it was, B is still showing that it's starting on the data date. Ideally B should be somewhere in the future after activity A. Yeah, so now the only way to show that B will still be after A is to use your actual date. So if I schedule now and I put my actual date in here, if you go to options and you select actual date as your date, so when scheduling progress activity, use actual date. So if we click on close and say yes and you schedule, you will now see that B will now be happening in front of A. So you're just simulating that A is finishing where it is finishing and B will come after A is completed. But if you don't move your data date, this is what will happen. But if you move your data date to somewhere here, if you just retain logic, you will still get the same result. So if you are working in a team and one planner is updating the progress and want to see the impact of the completed activities without changing the data date, I think that's the best case scenario when to use your actual date. So retain logic will retain the logic, progress override will override the progress. So for example, if activity A is not completed, B can say I can start since I've started, and the remaining part of B will also continue with that sequence. That's a progress override. But when you're using retain logic, B would start. For example, if A is not completed, so let's say A, I've still got maybe 2 days remaining. Okay, and you schedule the program here. Okay, and you move your data date. Let's say we move our data date to sometimes on the 29th and schedule. You see some part of A has started and part of A is yet to be completed. If we now say that if we now say that B has started as well, so let's say B has started sometimes in here. See, some part of B has started. If I schedule the program now, because I'm using the actual dates, so it's standing as it is. If I go back in there and change the option and change it to progress override and close and say yes and schedule, you see now B is continuing irrespective of what's happening to here. Since it's started, it would say yeah, I can continue. But if you go to retain logic, and then you change your scheduling option to retain logic and you click on yes and you click on schedule, you will see that even though B has started, the remaining part of B will still be sometimes in the future. All right, so that's the difference between your retain logic, progress override, and actual date. Retain logic will retain the logic, as you can see here. Progress override will continue, we'll move B in here and its B will continue. But actual date is when you want to, irrespective of your actuals on your program, you still want to show B that's happening in the future after the completion of A, even though A is completed, then you can see where your project end date would be. So you can use actual date to replicate that. I hope this is clear. If you have any question, please drop in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to get back to you as soon as possible. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Cheers.